So it had been a few months since I last did a video on this channel. You've had a few weeks, 7 weeks now, the NFL season. I hadn't done a video, just been a little busy with other stuff. But leave it to a week where you have week 8 of the NFL, the start of the NBA season, and the start of the World Series to bring me back out of my sports hibernation for a video. Well, this video focused on the start of the NBA season, which just tipped off a few days ago at the time of this recording. NBA season is back. It's been a very memorable week for the NBA in more ways than one. I want to start off by first just quickly talking about the basketball. The basketball on the national TV games has been just unbelievable to start off. You started off with that opening ring ceremony or that opening game for the Thunder and the Rockets, where the Thunder got their rings for their championship this past season. And then the game, the spectacle of having KD, Kevin Durant on his new team, the Rockets, watching his former team his first team get their rings, and the game goes to double overtime. Had just a lot of memorable moments, including KD calling the timeout, which he's lucky that the officials didn't acknowledge that timeout. Otherwise, that wouldn't exactly go on his Hall of Fame resume. That was a great game, and the Thunder just played another double overtime game last night where they played the Indiana Pacers, a finals rematch in Indiana. I don't think I've ever seen a finals rematch be played like 2 games into the season. I guess that just kind of goes to show what they think of the markets for those teams. But whatever, it was a decent spectacle, and that went to double overtime. Very impressive with the Pacers not having Tyrese Halliburton, but they still lost. Shea Gilgeous, he's been putting up a lot of points. Gotta say, though, he's probably one of my least favorite players to watch just because of the goddamn free throws that he gets. Man, that guy just gets so many goddamn calls. And refs just keep awarding him, just flopping all the way to the free throw line. I think he had like 26 free throws last night. I just don't like his style of play. He's great in terms of his efficiency with his other play and his smoothness and all that. But his personality, not much there, and then his style of play of the free throws and flopping, not really for me. But the other games were great too. Like last night, also you had the second game, Warriors versus the Nuggets in Golden State. That game was great. That went to overtime as well with Steph Curry. He just played unbelievable in the second half, and he was so good doing his usual showboating and all that kind of stuff. But he deserved it because he played great in the second half with that game-tying shot to get it to overtime. They beat the Nuggets. That was a great game. But the thing that was most interesting to me, believe it or not, despite the story yesterday, was just the broadcast changes that we have now. I think no, there was a lot of sadness when it came to the NBA leaving TNT. I know I felt that way when it was getting announced a couple of years ago, like, oh man, we're losing a TNT. But the fact that we're getting NBC broadcast, I think is really cool. Just because I was born in '95, so I was never really able to fully experience the NBA on NBC when it was in its heyday. I'm talking about in the '90s, obviously, because I was just born in '95, so I wasn't really watching the NBA or basketball then. But when I go back and when I'm always consistently watching those old school, like those championship Bulls teams from the '90s, those broadcasts on NBC, the finals, other iconic games, even stuff from the early 2000s. This is something special about the NBA on NBC, specifically from that heyday era in the '90s with the Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan. So to bring that back to NBC, which is just a bigger brand than TNT, let's be honest, in terms of broadcast and Sunday Night Football and that kind of stuff, I thought that was really exciting to see. Just seeing that opening, hearing that iconic music, it was just unbelievable to see. So I think it's really cool to have the NBA on NBC. And the actual games, I mean, hey, they're going to get great matchups because of the spectacle of NBC national. They're paying that money for a reason because they realize the value in the NBA right now. Where I think they're running into a little bit of issues, though, is the actual, I think, not broadcasters. I think the broadcasters are fine. Like for the opening game, they had Mike Tirico and Reggie Miller and Jamal Crawford for the opening game, Thunder versus Rockets. I mean, that's like Mike Tirico. He's unbelievable. His years doing basketball on ESPN and Monday Night Football and now calling the Sunday night games for NBC. He's great. And obviously, Reggie Miller, he's a pro at this stuff for a few decades now. And Jamal Crawford's proven to be good. I think it's the other entertainment that kind of caught me a little off guard. Like watching the game, they had their halftime show of having Maria Taylor and then you had Carmelo Anthony, Tracy McGrady, and Vince Carter. Those are three, in terms of the basketball players, those are three pros right there, but I don't think they're really that entertaining of personalities. And they all kind of have the same kind of personality and even style of play back in the, talking about, your early 2000 small forward scorers. And they don't really, there's not really a lot to differentiate them in terms of their personality, their takes on basketball, all that. I think it's a big reason why the Inside the NBA crew works so well, is because those personalities can be quite different from each other, but they work so well together, and they're entertaining, they're funny. It's a great show. Now, granted, it's just one broadcast. Maybe there's more to it, but I think the halftime show was a bit, and then what was really disappointing is the fact that, and this is what makes Inside the NBA special, you have these big games that happen, and then afterwards on NBC, it just cut to your local news. It's like, oh, okay, well, it's a little anticlimactic there. I think the thing that was I was looking forward to the most was when they announced a few months ago, or whenever it was, that Michael Jordan was going to be part of NBC in terms of the broadcast. I'm all like, oh, hell yeah, that's what's up right there. Just because, like I talked about earlier, Michael Jordan, he's synonymous for me with the NBA on NBC, those iconic stuff from the 90s. That stuff is, to have his perspective on basketball when Michael Jordan really hasn't been seen or heard from much at all since, his days of playing. He was an owner, but he wasn't really saying much when he was with the Charlotte Bobcats, Hornets, whatever it was. So to get his insight on the NBA today, I just thought would be really cool. But what I saw was like, when it was just, it was a recording, sort of an interview. When you saw, if you've seen it, Insights to Excellence with Michael Jordan, it's a conversation with him and Mike Tirico. And it's something that was probably recorded based on what people are saying, a few months ago or whatever. And the conversation that they had was just him talking about, reminiscing about his love for the game, and how the most nervous he's felt recently was shooting a free throw in Europe or something like that. Hey, I always love hearing from Michael Jordan. It's cool. Like I said, Michael Jordan, obviously legend. I'm not saying anything no one else doesn't know. He is the greatest of all time, in my opinion. But I want to see Michael Jordan kind of doing kind of a similar thing that Tom Brady's doing, where he doesn't have to be like a broadcaster, because I don't think he would be that entertaining like a broadcaster, but to have him in like a real analyst role, giving insights to the game, I think that's what a lot of people want to see. I want to hear from Michael Jordan in terms of the games actually happening, commentating in that kind of way, and like a studio kind of role. Now, again, this is just the first week of the broadcast. Maybe there's more, but if all of it is just going to be Michael Jordan just reminiscing on past things and all that, I don't think that's the direction people wanted to see. It's definitely not what I want to see. I love Michael Jordan. I still liked hearing him on the broadcast on Tuesday, but I want to hear more from them in terms of just general opinions, in terms of things like, the current era of players continuously switching teams, or the kind of play they have in the NBA where it is very 3-point heavy. That's what I want to hear. Hopefully they have more of that stuff to come in whatever interview they taped however long ago that was, because I don't just want to hear Michael Jordan reminiscing about the past. It's fine for your first episode or whatever, but you got to have more. The real surprise, or the real intriguing thing besides NBC for the broadcast, is the switch now of ESPN having the Inside the NBA show. There was a lot of sadness, obviously, when it was announced that TNT would no longer have the NBA, but I can't remember exactly when it was, but people thought the show was just going to end for a good bit there. But then it got announced that ESPN was picking up the rights to the show, to where the show would continue in its regular format with the same personalities, producers, even shot in the same area, just be broadcasted on ESPN. But naturally, I think myself and others just had a fear like, okay, you have that show on ESPN. What the hell is that going to look like? Are they going to make radical changes? How's the format going to be? Is it going to feel the same? Well, we've gotten a taste of it on 2 occasions this week, on Wednesday night and Thursday night, with it being the same thing where you have your opening tip-off show that happened, at least it happened on Wednesday. I'm not sure if it happened yesterday. I was still at work. And then you have your Inside the NBA 1 hour of it after the double headers on Wednesday and Thursday. And for those who were afraid that the show was going to change, wow, it was amazing and so surreal to see that the broadcast was the exact same thing. Just the weird factor of it being on ESPN, seeing that ESPN logo slapped in the middle of the Inside the NBA logo that they got there. But just having that broadcast just be absolutely the same was a real treat to see, just because there's a reason that show is beloved by basically every sports fan, basketball fan. Is there someone that doesn't love that show? It's a really fun show. The way the iterations it's gone, or not iterations, but just how it's gone over the last decades. It's been around obviously since I've been watching basketball, starting off with EJ, Kenny, and Chuck, and then eventually Shaq joining the fold for a decade and a half now. It's crazy he's been on the show for that long. But those guys work great together, great sense of humor and great commentary on the game. It's a lot of fun to see. You get a lot of great stuff with that show. And I was really impressed to see that it's in its same format. I was even expecting them to have the ESPN bar that goes on the bottom, the news bar that's on the bottom of the screen, to see that, because that's what ESPN has for all of their shows that air. But amazingly, even that wasn't there. It's really just the same old show, just with the ESPN logo slapped in there, and the and even shot in the same studio. It was unbelievable, and obviously broadcasting on ESPN, that's the big difference. So that was a real treat to see. Just for those who were like myself, who were sad the show was ending, is that it's continuing in its same format with basically no major changes done to the show. Because that show can definitely, sometimes the kind of stuff they do isn't something that you would see on a regular ESPN broadcast, but maybe it's ESPN and Disney just kind of changing their ways, to have a show like the Pat McAfee show airing on their national broadcast. It was a pretty big surprise, kind of because of this kind of content, language, and stuff they do on that show. So maybe ESPN realized that a lot of their stuff wasn't really working so well, just because the way their NBA countdown show and halftime show has gone for basketball over the last few years, that stuff has been absolutely, I think, pretty terrible. The analysts that they've had, where you've had like Bob Myers, like a GM with his personality, I was like, I don't want to hear or listen to that. Other stuff like having, I don't want to call out too many names, but Kendrick Perkins, not exactly my favorite analyst. He had a pretty weird moment earlier this week. I'm not going to get into that, but yeah, consistently, I don't love hearing from him. So yeah, their broadcast has been just not so great lately. But to have Inside the NBA crew in the fold, oh, that's an absolute coup right there. So they're making some worthwhile changes to make their broadcast a lot better, even improving the main broadcasting team they have calling the games, with of course still having Mike Breen, but now having Tim Legler in place of Doris Burke, and Richard Jefferson, who I think is a nice personality. So the ESPN broadcast, things are definitely trending in the right way. At the time I'm recording this, I haven't been able to, they haven't had a broadcast on Amazon Prime yet. That's the other major change to NBA broadcast. That's debuting tonight. Got a little preview of the crew watching the little bit I did of Thursday Night Football. It was the most interesting thing when they showed the whole kind of studio layout of the NBA team for over there, which you had, I'm not sure who the main female host was, but you had commentators or people in the studio that are going to be Dirk Nowitzki, Steve Nash, Blake Griffin, Udonis Haslem. Now that's a great lineup right there. I bet NBC wishes they had that lineup, because those are different personalities, but I think those guys together, there's a lot that's going to be good to hear from all of them. They're various different perspectives. They don't all play the same position or have the same kind of style like those three guys I mentioned for NBC, Carmelo, McGrady, and Vince Carter. So again, haven't heard the broadcast yet or seen whatever kind of studio show they're going to do, but that's really cool to have those guys in the fold. I think that has me looking forward to whatever they're going to do tonight. So hopefully I can comment on that afterwards whenever they're done. So that was all the fun stuff for the NBA with the games. I didn't even talk about Victor Wembanyama, his game that he had on Wednesday night. Wow, he might be announcing to himself, to everyone, that he's ready to be that step as the top player in the NBA now, just because he was he was special that night with that height and the kind of things he can do. Oh my God, that guy can be as absolutely unstoppable if he stays healthy, which hopefully he does. With that, when you're that tall, though, you never know. All that was super fun on Wednesday night, but then yesterday, I wake up at 5 a.m. and I usually have it on ESPN, just having it on Get Up, just something to listen to in the background while I'm kind of getting myself up. And then I hear the breaking news. I put my head up and I see the headline saying Chauncey Billups, Terry Rozier arrested for some gambling scandal, an FBI-led the probe that was done over the last few years. And naturally, that's something that's just rocking the whole sports world yesterday, and it's going to bleed into for a while, just because, as people were saying, it's the first time a sitting coach has ever been arrested. I'm not sure if it's a time where a player has gotten arrested. Probably not, based on the personalities of some players in the NBA or NFL. But that is obviously a big deal. Even the thing with sports gambling being legalized over the last few years, it's opened up a can of worms in terms of the things people got to realize what they can and cannot do. A lot of the stuff is a little bit beyond my knowledge because I don't do sports gambling. But a big thing, obviously, if you're a player or coach, you better not be caught doing that stuff. That is the ultimate thing that just kind of lowers the integrity of any league. So it was an investigation. Terry Rozier got into some trouble a few years ago, but got acquitted or whatever from it, charges dismissed, whatever it was. But whatever the FBI did, they found out more info to have that stuff come about. A lot of the coverage I've heard about is the same kind of thing you'd hear, where you do have to, let the facts play out, or the process, innocence until fully proven guilty. But I would just have to think that if FBI has been doing their homework for 4 years, based on what that director said in the press conference yesterday, they got to have something. That's just an unbelievable situation. You'd figure if you're an NBA player, NBA coach, getting a pretty good salary right there, why would you try to risk it all through gambling? It's really silly. It was something. Gilbert Arenas, he's a former player, obviously, at this point. He was involved in something a few months ago where he got released. I was reading stuff on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, that people are saying that maybe he did some kind of plea deal to where he was ratting out people that were involved in the same kind of gambling or whatever kind of issues he was. They said the Chauncey Billups thing is related to the mafia, some real crazy Godfather type shit. So there might be more names to come out. In fact, that's what Charles Barkley was saying yesterday, that I 100% agree with. And a lot of people are probably nervous as hell that their information is going to come out, whether you're a former player, and definitely if you are a current player. If there's ever any sort of the big names that come out for this kind of stuff that are involved in situations like this, wow, that's Adam Silver. He's going to have a crazy situation on his hands. So all of that, amazingly, is going to kind of but distract people from the Clippers scandal. I still want to hear from that, just because a lot of the evidence that came out a few weeks after that kind of pointed to that. They probably did do some nefarious stuff with Kawhi. So you have that scandal, but that doesn't really compare, at least I don't think it does, to a big thing where current players, current coaches, and potentially more are actually getting arrested. So that's really all I have to say on that one, is that obviously it's a crazy situation, and just the spectacle of it all is going to be it's going to be amazing to see play out over the next few months. Billups, I saw a video, he did get out of jail wherever he was, but they announced that he's going to be on leave. Who knows for how long that's going to be. Let's see how long this process takes. That'd be amazing to see him come back and coach the team sometime this season. I highly doubt that, but they probably want to get this done as soon as possible. A case of this high profile that kind of transcends basketball and was covered on all of the major news outlets like Fox and CNN, all that kind of thing. So very memorable week for the NBA. Brought me out of my sports hibernation I've been over the last few months. Should be a very interesting, amazing season to watch play out. A lot of excitement with the broadcast changes, the switching of the networks inside the NBA, and of course the basketball itself should be pretty amazing to watch. The Eastern Conference, not so much. That's going to be a really bad conference. That's all-time worst conference this year. The Western Conference should be unbelievable. There's just a lot of exciting stuff to look forward to this NBA season. So thank you for watching this particular video. If you made it to the end, thank you for watching.